Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Birds on a Blue Note. You got your captains here today, Trevor and RJ. Hope you guys are doing a little bit better after this weekend this past, had a bit of time to cool off. Before we now jump in and get you all heated back up again as we discuss a recap of the
Yeah.
Brewers series, we are going to be incorporating some highlights going game by game. And stick around for the end. We have a community question talking about what we think people, believe we should be doing after
Yeah, what
this
what what changes
series.
can be made?
Yeah.
Realistic, like you can't just fire everyone, but things that could possibly happen to kind of kickstart this team moving in the right direction.
Exactly. So we'll get to that at the end, but getting back to the reason why we are here to discuss that awful series sweep at the hands of the Brewers at home. And we're going to go game by game just to make it a little easier and then give you our thoughts of this series as a whole, as we said. Kicking it off with game one, we had uh, Gibby going up against Peralta. And at least in my mind, I knew from the get-go it was going to be one of those games. If you don't get to Peralta early, he's going to make you pay for it. However, I mean, in my mind, I was real happy with the performance that we got from Gibby, but just frustrated throughout the game by our offense just not being able to get anything going. I mean, we got men on base. What did you see? I'll kick it over to you, RJ.
Yeah, for sure. Game one is that set the tone for the series, really. And I think that's probably the most frustrating loss because it was a very, very winnable game. I mean, he got 6 innings of one-run ball by Gibson. Then the bullpen shut it down. He got one unearned run in the 10th, the ghost runner by Helsley. But we had plenty of opportunities. I mean, we're batting close to 200. I think we're under 200 now with runners in scoring position as a team. You
Worst in
just,
the NL.
yeah, you got to drive those runs in, man. Like when you have the opportunity, especially when they make mistakes too, or they walk guys. We're not cashing in on the walks either. I mean, you look like the middle of the order. Gorman, Goldie combined 0 for 10. Goldie had a chance to win it there in the ninth, and he weak ground out, and Gorman had the bases low in the 10th, and he struck out looking at for his fourth K. So that's the platinum sombrero, I think. But it's gold when it's three, and it's platinum when it's four, right? So I mean, you can't ask for any more from the pitching staff. Like Gibson was supposed to be your number four guy, and he's been consistently getting you 5, 6 innings. And maybe they're not always the best, but he gave you 6 innings of one-run ball here. That's a
Yeah.
game you should win. And the bullpen gave up 0 earned runs and 4 innings combined, and he still managed to lose. It's tough, and that set the tone for the series, I think. So, um,
And
I'll let
I
you
think
kick.
in, I mean, I think in extras, you really saw the difference between, in my opinion, knowledgeable management and in-game management versus reckless
Oh yeah,
game
for sure
management.
too. And you had Newt do up first in the 10th there with Goldie on second, and we're all like, "Bunt, get him to third." We're having a hard time hitting with runners in scoring position. You get him to third base with one out, and all it takes is a ground ball or a fly out, and the game's tied again. And
Well,
and they
and,
didn't.
and and if we're being real, in that first game, it was clear that both Contreras brothers were feeling it still. Both came in hot into the series, and both William and Willie, like, they were the forces to deal with. I mean, even Wilson got thrown out at home early on in the
Yep.
game in the
And I
second.
don't blame him for that. I mean, a lot of people don't like it. I
It was
understand
the
it.
right call. It was a bang bang play. If he's able to sneak his arm in, we have a run right there. It was the right call. He caught them sleeping and he almost got away with it. I
And
am
not only that, we're
totally
talking about
fine with
hitting with
that.
runners in scoring position too. Like there was 2 outs, he would have been on third, and we would have had to hope to get a hit with. And it's like pulling teeth to score runs with this team sometimes. So like I get being aggressive, when your team's struggling offensively.
When you
Exactly.
also have to remember, it's a force out there too. It's a swinging strike. So if they go to first and they have a chance to get to Gorman, it's still possibly an out. So you have to, take the attempt there. But again, Going into the 10th, why even pitch to Contreras? You have two outs.
First was open too. Yep.
First is wide open. And then look at what they do in the bottom of the inning. First is open, put him on first, get Gorman to strike out to end the game.
Yep. Yeah,
So
we were outmanaged for sure. And I
that
don't like to always blame Ali Marmol. I know not everything his fault, and I don't agree with this. Isn't me protecting him. I think he's definitely got some things he needs to work on. But like a lot of these issues that we're talking about as a team currently aren't. I mean, you can't blame Marmol for Goldschmidt not hitting. You can't blame him for Gorman just striking out 40% of the time. That's the players need to have some accountability. And it's easy to be like, oh yeah, just fire the manager, fire the hitting coach, and maybe you'll kickstart the team. But like that's on the players, on their mindset. That's not the manager.
at some point, major league players have to be responsible for their play. And I know, let me preface this, nobody is beating themselves up more or angry about this right now more than Goldie. You think he isn't pissed the fuck off? You are kidding yourself. If you are a fan of this Cardinals team and you think you are frustrated, he is fucking more pissed than you could ever be at this moment because he knows that this is his role. He prides himself in being a professional and not, you know, taking games off, so to speak, when he's playing. But it comes down to both. If the offense does their job earlier on, Marmol doesn't get put in that situation, but that doesn't negate his responsibility when he's in that situation to make the right call. And there's only so long that you're able to get away with being a green manager and like putting your, you know, eggs in the, oh, they just outplayed us basket, you
Yeah, you
know.
can't tip your cap. That's something I know a lot of people are like, oh, we wish we had Schilt back. Schilt was the
You,
same way. Schilt was not a good bullpen manager either. You're just looking through rose-colored glasses because you don't like Ali. He
Mhm.
did the famous tip your cap to the other team, like every close loss, and it drove me nuts.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, you're exactly right. Like those close games, those decisions are very key in how the outcome turns out, and he's didn't make the right decisions. Like especially late game with the Contreras as he mentioned, and then maybe like bunting with Newt. He didn't do that either. Yeah,
no.
that's I think that's the toughest one. We could talk about game one all day, so I'll move on to game two. I'll let you kick off with game two. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so obviously for game two, we were looking to bounce back. For that game, we had Miles on the mound, and that put me at kind of a bit of a hesitation to begin with. But the thing is that the offense actually showed up somewhat early. They got some runs on the board and started to support him. Now, to be fair, they did not keep that up as the game went on, which they
Oh,
should have been able to, but Miles ended up letting Brewers back in. Now, one of those was an absolute golf shot where a player went down onto his knees and picked that up for a home run. And I thought Walker could have possibly robbed the other one if he had a few more years of seasoning in the outfield, but devastating loss. They just kept piling on the run, something
oh
that
yeah.
we've had issues doing. Final was 12-5 there. Wasn't even close. 18 hits to 6 on there. And yeah, I don't know much to say else about this game. It got away
It was
from
an
us
ugly
pretty
game.
quick, didn't it?
Very ugly. Yeah, that's the thing is Michaelis. What do you I know it's early, but he's not even a five. If he's gonna give up 5, 6 runs in only a few innings every time he goes out there, he's not even getting you're not getting innings, you're not getting a chance. And you hit the nail on the head with the offense early on. We went down early, like what was it 2-0, 3-0 in the first couple innings, and we fought back. Like that's what you want to see initially. We took a 4-3 lead, and then Michaelis goes out there and then he gives the runs right back to the Brewers and just kind of let the air out of the balloon there.
But
And
one
yeah,
of those, in reality, one of those was you. One of those you do have to tip your cap at
I
the
maybe see here's where
at,
I sit
at
on
that
it.
hit. That
Like
was a pretty damn good pitch, and he went down almost to one knee and golfed it out.
I mean, maybe it's a good pitch. Like, the way I see it too, though, is like if you don't have the stuff anymore, even if the pitch is not in the zone per se, it's easier for you to follow it. And I think that's what happened. So, I
Oh,
mean,
that
like the
definitely
location,
was.
like in theory, the location was good. But if like the spin is easy to track as a hitter, which is what exactly what happened, he followed it all the way out of the zone.
You could see
And
it holding
yeah,
up. It was hanging on his breaking ball, and that's
yeah,
actually his first home run in the first inning. Was that we went down 2-0 real early because he just went to that breaking ball and it just hung there. And yeah, we did get it back, but uh, I mean, I was worried about this season to begin with him being relied on as R2.
yeah, it's a bad
It
extension.
was always It was always a point of contention for me. I always thought the best thing that we could have done is gone out and traded from some of our depth, got an
Get
actual number
Dylan
two,
Cease, who's
and
phenomenal right now in San Diego.
move Miles back to three or move Mats to the bullpen or somebody somewhere. But he is not a serviceable two. The good news is
Not
we've
even a
had other
serviceable
guys
three
coming
anymore.
on that weren't expected to be twos that like if Mats is healthy and doing well, he's serviceable.
Lance Lynn has
Lynn
been phenomenal so far. Yeah.
Lynn has been excellent. He's on his revenge tour campaign, but again, that doesn't cover the point that before we even got to the bullpen, this game got out of Miles' hand
Yep.
and whatnot.
And you hate to see it too, especially like because we talk about the offense a lot, and rightfully so. We're last or next to last in most offensive categories. We haven't homered in like 8 games either, which is an issue. But you do like to see the offense fought back. We were down early. They fought back, took a lead, and that's usually like where you want your starter to be a dog and kind of bear down and really keep your team like.
That's where
But he
he
didn't.
needs to be a dog. That's where
He
he
didn't though.
needs to.
Yeah, like he let. I don't want to say he let the team down, but I mean he kind of did. The offense did too. It to be fair, because as you mentioned earlier, they stopped scoring after they scored early on. They just kind of
Not
and that
just
was it.
scoring, they stopped getting hits.
Yeah, yeah,
It
we got
wasn't
shut
just the
down after
not
like the
scoring.
fourth
It
inning.
wasn't like the issue like in game one where we were getting guys on second and third. We just stopped getting hits. And you
Yeah,
can't, again, leaving our starter out high and dry. Every mistake that they make, they feel insurmountable pressure because, shoot, now I just blew the game because again, these guys are professionals. They take a lot of responsibility themselves when they mess up and bear a lot of that weight. And if you know that, or if you think that your offense isn't going to pick you up, I mean, you still blame
yeah,
yourself
for sure. You feel like every
and
pitch has
whatnot.
to be almost like an out pitch.
Yeah,
And
and I mean, the next after that golf swing home run, he gives up a back-to-backer.
yep,
So it's
yeah, and
it's
there
one
goes
of
the
those
lead
things.
and the tie.
It seems like when one thing is working for us, the other side of the coin is not right
I mean,
now.
not only that, too, that was the worst game from our bullpen we've had in a couple weeks, too. They gave what 6 earned runs themselves. Thompson, Gio, Palante all gave up multiple runs, I think. Is an ugly game. And it stinks too, because like after game one, which was totally winnable, and you lost, to like go out and just get clobbered in game two, and the series is already over. You've already lost the series going into game three. You're kind of
But
hoping to split so you could get Sonny in game three with a at least split, so you could have Sonny in game three. And I'll let you kick off game three so we're not stuck on game two forever. Um,
yeah, so
kind of
real
a little bit.
quickly before game three, we did end up sending down Victor Scott. Just wanted to touch on that. I thought that that
And
was a
Palante,
good
who got
move.
lit up. Yep.
And Palante. But I thought that was a good move, at least for Scott. He needs time in AAA to get his confidence back, get his back going, and whatnot. And I think he'll be up again before the end of the year, ultimately, with how things are going. But I mean, any comments on that before we hop into game three?
Yeah, I agree with that as well. You don't want him to like completely lose confidence, and we don't know. I mean, it's a player to player thing. He may not have. He may have been able to write it out and eventually figure it out, but he's just not hitting at all. You want him to go back and get some hits in every day at bats too. That's what he always had the speed and the defense, but what propelled him to be a top 100 prospect is that he did hit so well last season in the minors. So you want him to figure that back out before you bring him up again.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. So jumping into game three, then we was at least hoping to avoid the sweep with Sonny on the mound. I definitely thought that that was a possibility with how well he has been pitching, and he has gotten some run support in his games so far to get him those wins that he has. But uh, another tail of the tape. I
Yeah,
mean, no, no runs scored, shutout again.
tough.
Absolutely. And like here's the thing is when you look at the line, Brewers 2 runs, 6 hits, us 0 runs, 6 hits. It just comes down to again them capitalizing on their men getting on base while us just sitting around twiddling our thumbs and trying having guys trying to play hero. And this is what personally upsets me about this switch to more Homer centric focus is
Oh, the three true outcome. Yeah.
you, you're either striking out or hitting a home run, and that isn't how you have rallies. You're going for killer endings every time, bang or bust. And this is a game where you need to string hits together as a team if you want to win games overall over the course of the season because all a home run does is reset the platform at zero. Nobody's on, and you got to go get guys back on. Whereas if you're hitting singles and everybody's just going around the bases, like momentum actually gets built. Guys get feeling well, the clubhouse gets chippy, and that shit leads to stuff. But I mean, before I call on that, what were your thoughts on
Um, well,
game
there's a
three?
lot of talk this offseason about whether like Sonny Gray was an ace or not, just like kind of based on age and past performance. And he was fantastic last year. The year before, he was a little inconsistent. He's kind of like an every other year type of pitcher, almost like Blake Snow, which is another guy that Cards Nation wanted. I mean, this guy's an ace. I mean, he's done everything you'd hope he'd do and more. There was an interesting stat I was looking at the other day, and I don't remember the exact number,
He's got a
but
1.04 ERA so
yeah,
far.
12 strikeouts. So like the Cardinals as a team had the longest stretch in baseball, like to current times, to have a starter strike out 12 batters. Like every other team in baseball had done it more recently than us. And it was like something like 2,800 days. So it was
I'm guessing it
almost,
was Wayno last.
yeah, it was so long ago that we've had someone pitch that well and miss that many bats. It's incredible. And like,
I think I
yeah, like,
remember that game. I think Wayno got like 13 or 14 or something.
yeah,
Probably.
1.04 ERA. He gave up 2 runs, but he only, if you're winning that game, he probably is already pulled because he's on that pitch limit still. He was pitching the seventh. He had a couple
Yeah.
guys on, then 1 out, and they went to visit him. And he said, "No, no, no, I want to pitch still." And he gave up that single double that let in 2 runs, and like we're at that point now where it's almost like apathy, or like because we know how hard it is for this team to score. It's like it's over, game's over. You could just see the defeat in the guy's eyes too. It sucks, like where he
And
had to
that's
be
why
so perfect.
when
Yeah.
Perkins robbed that home run, like, okay, I know people get upset when we don't score. I don't mind putting ball on the bat, putting the ball in play, and getting an unlucky out, or having the defense make a great play, or it just going directly at somebody where it's like that bad
Oh,
luck
Burleson. Yeah.
for batting average with balls in play, BA, BIP, and
Yeah,
everything.
the Babbitt cops hate us.
But I mean, after that, I can forgive him. He put bat on the ball, got robbed of a 3-run home run, would have put us up. But
Yeah, it was
after
crazy.
that, next batter, strikeout. You can't do that. I mean, it it's just frustrating. And I mean, when he robs that home run, it's like great. Nothing's going right for us at
Yeah,
the
when
end
it
of the
rains, it
day.
pours, right? Yeah, you could just feel it. You're like, oh, here we go. It's gonna be one of those games where it's difficult to score again. Even when you put on good swings, it doesn't work out. Yeah, it was Lars in the first, and I remember that because it's like, robbed a home run. It sucks. You remember every like should have been run when you're struggling to score any. Um, and yeah, that did set the. And I thought we'd score something because like up until that point, we were putting some pretty good at bats together and getting men on, and, putting some good swings. And then I guess that just kind of sucked the life out of the team. I don't know. It's
I think we had second and third both innings or that. The
Yeah,
runners
well,
just
when we were robbed, Lars was the first out of the inning. We had two runners on, and that was the first out. So he still
yeah.
had two runners on and one out. Uh,
It's just so
Yeah.
frustrating that we can't get anything going with that. But I mean, that leads us into the question that you posed to the community ultimately, and I'll I'll dump that off to you to introduce that.
Um, yeah. So I asked like, what would you change, I guess, with the team or what move would you make that's realistic, to kind of hopefully get these guys back on track?
Because
Um,
obviously you can't fire everybody, as you said before. You can't
yeah,
fire and
I
trade
mean,
everybody. It's just not realistic. The whole fire the front office, fire the sell the team.
yeah. I mean, you can do that, but just like based on like what
You're
we
not
know of
selling
the
the team
Cardinals,
mid-season.
yeah, and like where we are and what time in the season it is, and like current contract situations, it just feels unrealistic. Um, so Aaron and Aaron, but opera golfer and Emmett Smith fan both said fire award. And I don't want to say I agree with the sentiment of fire because I don't think this is his fault, but I agree. Well, I guess I don't agree with it being his fault, but I kind of agree with the sentiment, I guess, that it flipped. Um, you need, the players need kind of a kick in the ass, right? Like you need to send a message somehow, and it sucks. He's a casualty of war, and I really don't honestly feel like it's his fault. But like sending that message, like, hey, like we're like people are losing their livelihoods and their jobs because you guys can't get your shit together, so figure it out. And I kind of understand that. And I think that is realistic. Like and you look, we keep talking about the offense. Here's another stat. We've scored three or four or fewer in 15 of 22 games. Like more than two-thirds of our games we're not scoring runs. The only team worse is the White Sox, who've done it 16 times. And I don't know if you've looked at that White Sox lineup lately. Almost their whole team is hitting under 200.
Yeah. No, I think it was
It's
basically
bad.
their whole team is under 200. But yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the ones I've seen as popular is Fireword, and I kind of put my 2 cents on that and why I understand it. So I'll let you kind of expand on it a little bit if you want to say something about it.
Well, when it comes to these things and the team is struggling, ultimately that is going to be the first recourse. Somebody on the staff is going to go. Now, whether that is hitting and pitching coach, obviously not pitching coach right now, but whether that's the hitting coach, um, or the manager himself, Ollie, remains to be seen. But the first casualty is going to be somebody on staff, ultimately. You got to just send that message, like you said, this is not acceptable. Next would be looking at trades. Way too early for any sort of trade market to have developed. There really aren't any full sellers other than maybe like the Marlins or the White Sox, but you got to let that develop a bit more. So
Yeah,
if
way
you're
too early for
gonna
trades.
if you're gonna do something, it's gonna be a firing. And as much as I personally would like to see Ollie gone and Stubby Clapp take over mid-season, which this, even though it's early, is technically mid-season, it's probably going to be Ward if they're going to make a move ultimately. And uh, everybody's just doing so poorly. It isn't like you can just send one person down, other than like Scott, who was just so young that it
Or
makes
maybe
sense. But
Walker. I mean, that's one of the ones that's been talked about. He's
once
gone the
Edna gets
opposite
back,
direction in his development, and it kind of stinks to see it. He's not lifting the ball. He's got 0 home runs still. He's hitting 164. I
yeah.
mean, last season they sent him down early because he's having a hard time hitting it in the air, but he was at least hitting it hard everywhere. And I remember talking about it with a couple people. It was like, yeah, he's smashing the ball. He just needs to get a little bit under it, and no big deal, and that will come naturally. But what the heck has happened this year? Like what were we
Oh,
working
it's
on
just
off season?
bad habits, and this can happen when you're a young kid that's struggling. you're in this environment, there's so much more pressure. You want to stay up in the majors, and so you start getting nervous in the plate and get jumpy, and that is a pitcher's favorite thing to see from you. And so it's just one of those things where he does need to fix those bad habits. Now, whether they think he can fix that up here or not remains to be seen. I think he could do well with a stint going down, but I think that's going to happen, if anything, when Edmund comes back, is when that would
Yeah.
be the case.
And then that's something else that may or may not reflect poorly on the hitting coach, as we are talking about. And that's not, we don't know like necessarily if like he's what he's telling them. And if he is getting those bad habits from him, I don't think so. Most of the time it's on the hitter himself or the player themselves. But yeah, as you said, like Walker would probably if you throw a Walker in a lineup like the Braves right now or like the Dodgers where like there's multiple players clicking, he's probably more successful because he doesn't have to press so much every at bat. He doesn't have to
Yeah.
feel like he has to do something big
He
every time he
looks
comes to the plate.
nervous. He looks nervous right now. He looks uncomfortable, and that he just needs something to get himself going. And I think again, like you said, a minor league stint would end up doing him well for that because he'll rake off of that
Yep.
slower pitching and that less movement and whatnot.
Smaller parks too.
Um,
I mean, Busch is a fly ball killer, so
Siani actually makes that move a little more agreeable too I mean, he robbed a home run. Well, could have been a home run depending on like what angle you
yeah.
got on the replay. But I mean, his defense out there and he's at least hitting better than Walker. No.
Well, then you got Burleson too, who like, and he may not have like the best results right now, but you watch a Burleson at bat, and he puts together a good at bat every time he's at the plate too. And he is one of the only guys that hits the ball hard consistently. And like you want to see that like over a larger sample size and with more consistency, because like you may have something there.
Yeah.
And even if you don't plan on keeping someone like Burleson, that's a good piece you could flip for something that you need in the future. You never know. It's just that yeah, that's something one of the other guys said because I ramble. Ty Royal, get rid of the outfield logjam. It's counterproductive. Post 2015, a lot of people, yeah, and that's kind of true. We've had a lot of inconsistent. Like every year, it's a different outfield. And that people are not getting regular at bats or getting sent up, sent down. We don't really, you know, and when you're struggling, you bench guys or you send them down, and that makes sense. But he's kind of right. It's been very inconsistent.
Oh, absolutely. It has, but we've been getting performance one year from one guy and then they somehow regress the next year and another guy pops up doing well. It's been this weird carousel of performance. And I know people like to point to development at the major league level, but again, at some point, it is these professionals' responsibilities to not fall back into bad habits. Your coaches are really just more there as assistants at this level, giving you advice from what they see, places where you can improve. You are the professional that needs to go out and implement that feedback if you want to, ultimately.
Yeah.
Turner Ward is definitely not telling, Gorman and Walker to
Hey,
go
swing and
swinging
miss.
at that stuff on the outside and be like, hey, just look like a total fool at these breaking balls. That's definitely not the case. Again, but it's going to fall on him because he is the hitting coach and
Yeah,
whatnot.
there needs to be
Hey,
consequences, like a message needs to be sent 100%. Like this is
absolutely.
not acceptable. Like I said, 15 to 22 games, 3 runs or less with the talent in this offense that should never, ever, ever, ever happen. And I'm not saying that it's impossible, but like based like going into the season, looking at our lineup, you felt pretty good about it. And for us to be in the position we are right now, it's just kind of unreal, really. We thought the pitching was going to be what's holding us back, and the offense is going to be like keeping us afloat, and it's been the opposite. So,
Any final thoughts before we run out of time today?
yeah, I kind of wanted to get your 2 cents on what you would change if we had a couple minutes. I know we've been kind of talking about other people's, but is that what you would do as well as fire Ward?
I mean, in my mind, I would fire not just Ward, but I would fire Ollie as well. And here's the reason. It needs to be a full transition, ultimately. Here, if you're going to send a message, it can't just be Ward because this seems to be a persistent issue that's been trailing over the last couple of years with the offense and whatnot. So I'm not sure they're going to do it, but if it was me, I would do that. I would put in Stubby as just an interim manager. He's one of those guys that likes to light fires under people's asses, and he will bench you if you're not the type that's hustling or giving him that. And he actually prefers more small ball principles ultimately. But that's what I would do if the team still isn't producing come the deadline. You sell off people.
Yep. I think that's it for Goldie as a Cardinal, which is unfortunate. He would have liked to see a little more postseason success, but that might be the end of the Goldie Arenado era if
I
that's
don't.
comes to
I
that.
still think you try to work out a Goldie extension now and see if he's willing to give you a discounted rate with how things are going and everything, because he does like being here and he's not the type of money chaser. If you give him something where you can set him up post with like a job in the office, kind of like how Albert got that with the Angels, and he kind of liked how they gave him a life after baseball, and he's honored that. I think Goldie's the type of guy that you can give that type of offer to, and if he still sinks, if it's a team-friendly deal, you'd be able to move him if you wanted
Here's
to.
the
But
issue I have with that though. Like if we were to re-sign Goldie, like how stubborn our management is, they would play him and we
yeah,
would have an issue with offense at first base, which is one of the key positions you expect it from, especially this upcoming offseason when there's other viable options available for offense at first. I've talked about it before. If you watched any of our previous, I would be in favor of signing Pete Alonso. I know he's not popular here in Cards Nation, but when you're averaging close to 40 home runs and 130 RBIs per 162, you take that. Like even if the defense falls off a cliff, you take that at first base, especially for a team that's struggling this much offensively. Or like who I would want to sign, and it's just, this might not be the most popular, but I want to try pulling Murakami over from Japan. I think he's going to be something special in MLB. And like if you see the issue I have is if you re-sign Goldie, the front office is not going to do that because they would want him to play every day. And
that's
like
true.
if you were to re-sign Goldie, you'd have to have the honest conversations like, hey, you're going to be like a supplemental piece. You're going to be you probably don't want to say, hey, you're a bench bat, but like you're more of like a DH these days, like or like a fill-in, not an everyday, especially if it continues going down this path where he can't quite figure out how to catch up to the fastball anymore. And you hope it turns around. Historically he's a slow starter, but not this bad.
No, his MVP
179,
season, his MVP
20.
season.
Yeah, he's 20, we're 20 over 20 games in, and he's still only got one extra base hit on the season. And it was opening day.
True.
Um,
It's been a rough start, but again, like 2022, through the exact same amount of time, April 21st, his slash line 146, 271, 195 with a 466 OPS. Whereas right now he's 180, 289, 218.
so you're saying he's gonna be
He's
better
just really shitty in March and April. Let's put it that way. So
uh,
I'm saying if you want to bet on Goldie to be MVP this year,
the odds are going to be pretty good, right?
he has a track record of actually pulling it off.
That would be something. I mean, if you watch his at bats, they just look not great. But yeah, I would be okay with keeping Goldie only if it's with the understanding that hey, you're not going to be the everyday starter anymore, and I don't think you'd want to do that.
Yeah, but I mean, we can't read his mind. You bring it to him as a front office, and you get him to reject you, and that way, at least you can tell the fans, hey, for those of you that wanted Goldie, we offered him something that would make sense without pissing off the rest of you fuckers, like a
Yeah,
Matt
and that's one
Carpenter
of the easier
extension.
places to get offense from. Like I said, with the upcoming offseason, only like we didn't even talk about Nick Kurtz. I don't know how much you guys follow prospects, like pre-draft prospects, but Nick Kurtz is a guy who plays first base and does nothing but hit home runs, and he's projected to be like only a year in the system before he's ready. So, um, there's options. You don't want to like take away a position where you can upgrade offensively when the offense has been struggling the last couple of years, as he said.
Well, I mean, the beautiful thing is when the draft occurs. So you'll know who you got from the draft before the end of the season.
Yep.
ultimately. So
Hopefully I
if
want Nick
if you
Kurtz
get
or Chase
somebody
Burns,
like a
but
Kurtz, then yeah, it does make a lot more moves expendable, especially with where we're going to be picking this year. There's definitely a chance, as we covered in the prospect watch before, and we've covered with our drafts that we're going to be doing more of. Uh, who knows? We could get, and we just got to see who drops to us, and depending on who does, yeah, we can make some moves from there and move some
yep.
people around. But a little too early, I think, to speculate on that. I mean, is there anything else I might have missed?
I mean, we were talking about maybe trading off some assets. The big one, like you said, is Goldie. I mean, Arenado's been hitting well lately. I don't know if I trade him because he still has a few years left on the contract. You don't want to trade both of them. In my opinion, you don't want to because you're going to need some of that like um veteran presence in the lineup still, especially someone like Arnaud who is still being productive. He may not have the power numbers right now, but he's like close to 300, and he's
Yeah,
got the on base streak and he still plays good defense. Um, Outside of them, like I don't even know who we could flip for much right now. Like, no one's hitting unless you wanted to flip Gray this early on, but you don't really want to do that either because
you're not
he
moving Contreras, you're not
yeah.
moving Win, you're not moving Herrera. You're not moving anybody that's doing well. I mean, maybe you try to move Mats or something because he's on a very
Yeah.
cost-effective deal, but I'd rather have him in our pen or on the rotation than not on the roster at all when he's healthy. He's
So
actually
then
been really
you're
good for
looking at
us.
you're looking at I guess a retool versus a rebuild then, which I mean
That's
it's hard to
where,
rebuild a Cards Nation. A lot of fans will not be happy about that. So the retool makes more sense. Just flip a couple guys and try to
well,
meet and make an
you got to
impact.
act quickly. You got to act quickly. We lost 3 games on the Brewers this weekend.
Yeah.
We
Well,
we lost 3 games in a division that's already super tight, that we didn't have any real room. Now, again, it is early and there's a chance that everybody turns things on, but we're starting from a place where we're not even in the middle of our own division, despite not having too bad of a start compared to some of the other teams in the league and whatnot overall. Our pitching has been holding up. It's won us a few games. Offense has shown up a couple of times. So,
only a
it's
couple though.
only a couple, but it's not like we're super far back where if we have a decent May, we'd be right in the mix of things, and we could even be end up in first by the end of May with how the games go and how they're
What stinks
scheduled.
about getting swept to the Brewers, though, is, and I know we talked about it before, is these division games are more important now because there's less of them.
Yeah,
Because the league has this even scheduling where everyone plays everyone now, so you get less divisional games. And like we don't play the Cubs till next month, so like these are super important. So it just really stinks, like it sucks, getting swept, especially at home.
yeah,
Um, Wish you would have at least pulled one of those off, lessen the blow a little bit, only lose one game, but losing three, yeah, that really sucks.
yeah. Well, I mean, that'll do it for us
Yeah.
today, you guys. Here at
Sorry. Just
Birds
trying to
on a
be
Blue
too much a
Note. Sorry
downer.
to end on such a rough note. I mean, looking forward, we have this Diamondback series that is starting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. This will actually probably come out on Tuesday, so we won't have really the first game of the D-backs to report to you. But that is funny with the even scheduling. We're already knocking out 6 against the Diamondbacks before we even play
Yep.
a game against the Cubs. I just find that
Or the
pretty funny.
Pirates or the Reds.
We haven't even played our rival and we're knocking out 6 against the Diamondbacks. But sure, let's go ahead and do
Yeah.
it. I mean, we need to win this series, though. We need to finish strong in April. We've got Diamondbacks, Mets, and then the Tigers to finalize this month. So I want to see us at least in those. Now I know the series are long, but in at least in those 8 games to finalize the month, I would personally like to see us go 6-2. I think it's possible. I don't know if it's going to actually happen though. Knowing my luck, we're going to go two and
Yeah.
six.
The Tigers
But
been playing not bad ball. The Mets have been hot lately too. So listen, don't take any of these games for granted. We got Lynn
no,
going. We
no,
got
we
Lynn
can't.
going for us game one against the D-backs, and he's been a dog, and he hope he continues to be that way. You know, he's one
I
of the more
just can't
fiery
imagine
guys
a
in the
more
team.
rock bottom than where we're at for the offense. So like I'm one of those people where I gotta believe we're in the gutter, and literally the only way that we can look right now is up from there.
Yeah, I mean, you look between Goldie, Gorman, Walker, and Arenado, which
Every
is
case
like our
of civil war.
core. I think they've got 5 home runs
Yeah.
combined. So, like I said, we got to break out of this power slump we're in. We got guys that are supposed to be knocking them into the gaps and knocking them over the wall, and they're not. And you don't have to rely on 3, 4 singles in a row to score runs, which has been happening. We've been getting guys on base. That hasn't been the issue. We'll get like single bases loaded, then strikeout, strikeout, strikeout. You hit it over the wall, you score all 4 of them. So like let's start doing that. Come on, guys.
Oh yeah. So well, we'll catch back up with you guys after the Diamondback series. Thanks again for joining RJ and I on another episode of Birds on a Blue Note. We'll see you next time. Let us know your thoughts on this Brewers sweep, what you guys might change yourselves, and we look forward to seeing and hearing from you guys. Take care and have a good one.
See ya.